Welcome back to a Life Under Construction podcast. I'm your host, Rora Daniel, and today I have a very special guest with me, my dad, Daniel Victor. Welcome, Dad, to the podcast. Thank you for joining me today and agreeing to do this even on a holiday.
It's a pleasure.
So, you're someone who has a lot of wisdom. I think I've got a lot of requests from people to have you on my podcast. And there are so many things that you can probably talk about because you are a successful man by all definitions of the word. You are the managing director of a business, you run 4 charitable trusts, you're on the board of other charities, you're a public speaker, you do a lot of things. But why I called you on the podcast is because I know that when somebody asks you the question, how do I be great? How can I become great? You always start with purity.
That's true.
So, this is something that you chose really early on in your life. At the age of 20, you decided to live and pursue a pure life. And whatever it was in all of your dealings, whether it was personal, whether it was in your relationships, whether it was in business, in all of these things, you always pursued purity. You always pursued a life of virtue. And I've seen that. And I always tell people that you are someone who can't even lie to surprise anybody. That is the intensity with which you live this life of virtue. So, my first question to you is why was purity so important to you at the young age of 20 till today?
As a teenager, I used to wonder what meaning of life is. And then I didn't get a good sense of it, except whatever I saw people do as routines of existence. And this question didn't leave me. And therefore, I was even more curious to understand and almost considered that just living this mere existence of maintaining your own self was not good enough for me to continue to live on this earth. And I'm very grateful that suddenly a revelation of a kind occurred to me. So I would say that the life that I was leading and so many things that I did according to my choice, things that maybe somebody considered bad, I chose to do because I had thought that there may be something valuable in it. And in that manner, I continued to live my life and had never thought about those things as in any way connected to a clear understanding of existence in this way. That this revelation that I got was an indication to me that the things that I did which were not good, they seem to have corrupted my life. And the way that I could get a clear picture of purpose was when I became not just merely conscious of it, but also make a choice. I will stay away from such things in my life. So that was my turning point. And when I chose to do so, I saw something clear up that I could see as clear as seeing through a mirror without muck on it. And I don't think I will ever want to go back from this new position of having my life clean from all the wrong that I know I shouldn't be doing.
Yeah, I think I completely agree with you because I've seen that in my own life, the night and day difference between when I've lived a purer life and when I've not. And as you said, you see life more clearly when you live a life of virtue, when you live a life of purity. But unfortunately, our world today is telling us that live the life you want to live. Live the life that gives you the most pleasure in the moment and do whatever you want to do, whatever you feel like doing. And people, unfortunately, have not realized or have not thought about that when we succumb to our urges, when we succumb to our desires, when we succumb to our cravings, we are actually enslaved to that. We are not living the free life that we think we are living when we are enslaved to every single desire that crosses our mind. So, when the world is telling you to live a certain kind of life, but you have chosen this way of life since you were 20 and you have found it to be fruitful, you found it to be the best life, I think you would say, what would you say to this world and to those people who are trying to convince us that virtue is not important, purity is not important?
It's a matter of choice as to whether you want to live or whether you want to be alive. I realized and was eager that I wanted to be alive and not just merely live. It's unfortunate that the world and its majority of people have not made a determination of that kind. But then the question is whether you wish to hear the voice of that majority who have not made a determination of that kind, or you want to really listen to that still small voice that is also available for indication as it did in my life. As much as I was seeking that I wanted to know life's deep purpose, the voice was willing to speak to me. It's a voice and wasn't a noise. And it's a choice that any individual can make in order to embrace meaningfulness, clarity, purity, and power. Why would I trade the other existence, even if it were majority, even if it were all, and if I was a single person on earth? I'd rather live a meaningful, purposeful existence with clarity, with purity, with peace, with power. And that's not something that I want to trade off for anything in the world. And I'm sure there is this great way available for anyone. I believe we all are in a way designed with capacity for both good as well as for evil. Now that's the design of human. Just as much as all born have a heart that pumps blood into their system, the ability to make choice between good and evil is built into everyone. What I realized in doing those things that were pleasurable and that were habit forming, that in a way takes away the clarity and in a way that makes you blind and makes you bound. Because some of these things, say whether they are drugs, whether those are things to do with the things of the flesh, these are all sometimes so addictive and they can enslave you for a lifetime. So, as I said, the question to all, including me, was you want to live or you want to be alive? And therefore, I have chosen that even if I were just by myself, and I have this clarity now, and I've had this since when I was young, and I'm thankful that I was searching for a deeper meaning and didn't settle to what everybody was following. Therefore, a breakthrough of a kind by that craving came because, in a way, I was wanting to give scope for that inner desire of my heart, which was craving for something meaningful. I didn't understand the weight that wrong had on me, the weight that wrong contributed to my blurredness, my blindness, and my bondage. But the moment that spark, so why me? Why not someone? Obviously, it's a miracle, it's a gift which I cherish. But I'm grateful, and that's why I say I don't want to even return back in any way from that kind of a blindness and a peaceless existence. You will agree with me, none of us want to sit in a dirty place. All of us have craving for the best things, even the best food. So there is this aspect of ours that has a longing for the higher things. But then when we allow our own selves without thoughtfulness and surrender to what others do or what our own bodily cravings are, or the cravings of our eye are, the craving of our senses are, as you said, we become slaved. And then we struggle to be able to see clearly. So I hope and my desire is, without an exception, that everyone in this world born as human will somehow find that inner voice calling to which they hear, and not merely hear, but make the choice to follow so that they could grow into the stature that they were really designed to grow into. Because I believe personally, Purity is liberating, purity is powerful. The true you can only be understood, experienced, and lived out only when you shunt impurity out of your existence and not allow it to grip you.
I think that is why I want to talk about purity when I had this season on purpose, because I know and I have seen it that when there is purity, there is power. Then you can see clearly what your purpose in life is. Then you can see clearly a vision for your life, and then you can pursue that purpose. Because when you are not pure, when you are not living with character and virtues, everything gets muddled up. Everything becomes so unclear, and you are not actually able to live the life that you were created to live. So, in your own life, once you made that choice at 20, that this is the life that I want to live, this is the way I want to live, this is the kind of life I want to pursue, how did you see that power be unleashed in all aspects of your life?
How did I see that power of purity?
That power of purity be unleashed, even if it was in your relationship, whether it was as a person pursuing a career. How did you see that then unfold into your purpose, even?
As I said, that purity brings clarity. It liberated me from quite a lot of my addictions. I knew I existed in this body, and this body has its own different appetites. And just because it is also a body which is granted with senses, so it senses and it can draw us into one or the other thing, these cravings
Yeah.
of the body. So the eye, the ear, what you hear, the thing that you see, all of these could actually stimulate and stir you in a certain direction. Now, the resolve to remain pure, even as I said, so that good and evil. So, I may even say the good spirit and the evil spirit. These seem to be unseen powers at play all around mankind. Then the question is on which side you will go. Just as much as I believe there is an aid that you needed in revelation, in understanding, so much you need also the aid even in walking and taking your steps forward. So I have admitted, and I want to remain so, that this is a matter that we can't merely cope purely by the strength of our body, our mind's resolve, and our determination and our longings. All of these are needed in a way in order to continue on that path. For example, if suppose I am in the midst of certain individuals who are talking rubbish, my mind has to take a decision and my body also needs to move along to stay away rather than be in their midst and allow my mind be corrupted, my thoughts be corrupted. So all of these elements are real, possessed by human, while at the same time we need also the strength. How would you make a choice in that moment as to whether you differentiate sharply good and evil, and when you make a conscious decision as to whether you would stay there, not stay there? So, that I believe again is the supportive, sustaining power of something that is beyond you, which too you need in order to accomplish what you are wanting to. So, my tactic is not to imagine that I could hold myself in all these circumstances. Because we can be tempted. We have people who have fear, anxieties. Those are all vulnerable moments. We have doubts. That's where relying on the source of power that is willing to aid you to remain in that state and continue to grow in that state is available, and we need to access it. And that's where we say then that turns into that silent aspiration, which turns to be prayer. So, can we survive against all the odds? And as you know how the world is, where these types of appeals of one or the other kind can keep coming, they're often presented to us in so many formats, as if even if you didn't do it, you're not a part of the crowd. fear, anxiety is almost built into our body. In those moments, unless you have the faith that there is something, someone beyond you who affirms you when you make those decisions and is able to scale you over and above all of these types of hindrances and challenges, I am not sure whether we can live this life of resoluteness. And that resoluteness is necessary for our fuller realization, or else we will be so compromised. And it's not a matter of whether you maintain it 25% or 40% or 50%, that's nothing lesser than 100% by which you need to maintain it. Thankfully, when you lean on such help and continue to practice your choices, it becomes naturally ingrained in you. Because when you're wanting to choose right, it can't be adequately supported unless you have also a simultaneous dislike for the wrong. Because it starts there. That you don't want this wrong within you. You don't want even a wee bit of it. So then it then natural flows into a desire for goodness. Now when you repeat this again and again, obviously in life you have various situations. And then when you repeat this matter again and again that you don't want this, you want this instead, Lord help me, you're moving forward and becomes part of your makeup. And that's why I'm a strong advocate in saying many people think higher standards of existence in life only happens over long periods of living. I personally feel it's about the intensity with which you really desire something. Like a athlete who wins fame at the world level. I can imagine, and you can too, how an athlete practices, endures, and tries and keeps doing it. That's when his formation is taking place. So I think living right is not a matter of just mere thought. It's a huge, wholehearted, emotional leaning on what is good. And that comes, one, of course, by the power of what it can make you into. And two is also the detestation of evil. And then, when combined with strength that you draw from outside of you, you become a winner even at a young age. And I tell you, even things that, even for example, pride. Pride is not something that's as displayed as murder, but you can have it sitting in your heart without anyone seeing it and imagining you to be good. Even such evil of nature can be overcome if you are determined. And that's how I wanted to be right from my young age. And that's how I have been. And I'm grateful for that.
So you are basically saying you make a choice, you detest evil to that extent, and then you seek good. I think we have not given this aspect of our life so much thought and so much time, unfortunately. I don't know whether it's because we are too busy, or as you said, there's too much noise around us that we do not have the space to even contemplate and reflect, or we just don't have that drive, because we have that drive for things like our career or so many other things that we deem as successful, but somehow for this aspect we don't have that intensity, we don't have that drive, we don't have that ambition to seek and pursue a virtuous life. But I've seen that drive in you from my childhood, and that drive has not waned even till today. And I think that is what has built this life that you have today. And I'm so thankful that you are here sharing from your experiences, sharing from practical life about how you have chosen to lead your life and how that has given you power in your own life, in all aspects of your life, whether it was your family life, whether it is your business, whether it is your community service, in every aspect of your life, you can see that power of a virtuous life that you have chosen to live. And again, as you said, it's not about age because you made this choice at 20. And I think there was a certain discipline that you had to maintain to even be away from things that contaminate, because purity The word means free from contamination. I looked it up in the dictionary. And that means that you have to kind of separate yourself and protect yourself and stay away from certain things, right? So, what is it that you did at different stages of your life? When you were in college, when you started your first job, when you moved to Bombay all by yourself? What were the practical things that you did to avoid that contamination?
Considering that I was raised up in a Christian home, I looked up scriptures, the Bible, and to see what the Bible says concerning life. And I found a great deal of wisdom that came from there for a young person like me at that time. So I made it a point that even today I read a great deal and I look at experiences around the world of many people, and I find that attachment to things that you are craving for needs to be foremost. Just as much as in my case, too, by my imagination, I didn't reach this point. So there was obviously a triggering event that opened my eyes that what was obstructing me from having a clear vision is the wrong that I was doing. Then what is right and what is wrong, I needed to find even much more intensely because my commitment was to stay on the right side all the time. That means that I had to actually understand. And therefore, scriptures, and in my case, the Bible, I have read it so many times over just to understand in order for myself to keep myself clean. The wonderful thing that I even learned there from the scripture was the fact that it was not merely a matter of action that reckoned one as wrong. It was even a matter of thought, or even for that matter, even your desire. Because of the fact that Jesus' words were, if your eye caused you to sin, pluck it out and let your rest of your body be in heaven. Now, who would imagine that someone would ask for a eye to be plucked out? The seriousness of your offense that you commit, even at your thought, comes home clearly by such a revelation. So I can't imagine cultivating life of purity comes merely by our own strength and determination and resolve. You and I know how many people make resolves every year and how many of them keep those resolves. They are well intentioned, but I suspect they don't follow it by the right action. So I think the way towards progressive power, purpose, meaningfulness is also only possible if we support it by those aids that you need. Now, for example, in college, I was a drug addict and I did many things wrong on account of that habit. And I had a whole lot of friends who were with me and we were good company to each other for quite some years. Now, for me, my change also made it necessary for me to give up that company. I'm now looking back, maybe some of them, I recently had an occasion to hear one of them. I couldn't see any change, even the way he spoke, the content of his speech were pretty foul. I knew at that time, and I therefore made a choice that thankfully I went on to do my chartered accountancy and I had therefore to quit my college where I was studying my postgraduate. And it resulted in me giving up quite a lot of those kinds of friends. I've been separated from them for many, many years, decades for now. And so that was instrumental. The second thing I said, I leaned on scripture. And then there is this constant prayer that you have even today. It's almost like the breath you breathe, the air you breathe. It actually is so essential that you're constantly longing to really remain uncontaminated in even your inner man. Because that's what I learned is the beginning point of your impurity, not your action. The action comes later. So, to that extent, when you want to live, and just as I said, alluding to an athlete at an international space, how much that person will be driven to get that gold. My life has been driven since then in that fashion, whether anyone existed next to me or not. Because I knew that there was obviously a high degree of a call and a high degree of accountability for our lives. And if our lives were meant only merely for living and doing existential stuff, that is, you have to survive and therefore you make your ends meet, you need to work for which you study. I'm afraid as to whether we are truly living. We are existing. And just because the majority do it, it doesn't mean that is right. The ones that are wishing for a deeper and a greater experience, and I believe, as I said, it's quite an inner craving of all. Somehow we suffocate it with various things. So I think what you dwell on, what you long for, and even as I said, what you detest, and drawing strength from someone beyond you, all of these are the ones that actually combine together and can keep your path together. When I say staying away, you can get contaminated through various media. It's on the phones, you can read rotten books. I've also done my lot in those days. So what ends up happening, your subconscious mind keeps capturing these things and play it out. So why would you want to contaminate yourself? If you want your home to be dwellable, you may spray something fragrant, but you're never going to spray something that has a bad odor. So this reasoning is quite an ability of ours. Then our own determination, then availing the strength, and thereby you can live successfully and meaningfully lifetime.
Yeah, I really hope that people listening truly understand the importance of this kind of life, because this is not something that we hear about. This is not something that is talked about. Most people are teaching us or training us or telling us about the superficial ways to achieve success, whether it is confidence, whether it is communication, whether it is how we look, what we wear, the bags that we carry. Everyone's talking about those things, not realizing that at the end of the day, it starts with who you are as a person. Not who you are also in front of people, but who you are behind closed doors when no one is watching. When you are in your room alone, what are you looking at on your phone? What are you watching on the television? What are you thinking about? Because you talked about it's not just the action, but it's the thought.
True.
And I think we can all look at our life, we can introspect and reflect on, is this the life that I want to continue living? A life that is messed up, a life that is muddled, a life that does not give me the clarity that I need? Or do I want to pursue a life that gives me more clarity, that gives me a vision for the future, that gives me power through the pure way that I live? I think once we live that kind of life, once we taste and see, then there's no going back. But the push needs to be to actually do it, because it's hard, it's not easy, it's a different way of living. There is sacrifice that is involved in it. And even in your life, I'm sure that not many people around you might have chosen to live this kind of life. It might have been a lonely existence. You might have been the odd one out. So, did you ever feel like you were alone? I'm sure that there were not many people who were living exactly the way you chose to live. But then, what makes you continue to want to live this kind of life? What makes you keep going?
As I said earlier, I can't trade this for anything else. I had this question about life's meaning, life's purpose. I couldn't imagine with my logical mind that we have created just for surviving. There had to be a greater purpose for human existence and contextual, because it is in your time. What's the relevance of you? What's your true value? I personally believe it is well within anyone's capacity to rationalize, quite like I did, and end up concluding that this existence is not just for the sake. A car is not made to be kept in the showroom. What's the purpose of the car? Quite like that, I think, when we ask these questions. So it is our hope. So the point is, somehow we get lost into and run this rat race without pausing and raising this question. That's why I often encourage people to start using the power of their mind and reflection. Even when I was young, I always stayed away from just sitting before what is screened even on a movie theater. Because it is not about me, it's about someone else. My prayer and hope is that somewhere, somehow, that trigger will happen in people's lives. That's one of the reasons why I'm even talking to you. I just don't know how it happens, but I still feel that's the best thing that can happen to anybody. Now, why would I want to go for anything lesser? It's a question. Suppose you had an option of buying a 19 karat gold and a 22 karat gold. By and large, you would think that the 22 karat gold is a better version of gold and you choose to buy it. Why would I want to buy anything lesser? After all, this is just one life. And in this life, why would I want to transact and go for the lesser? So I am absolutely convinced for what I have got in terms of clarity, purity, power, the trust that I experience with people, the amount of followership that I have of people wanting, longing to even have that little moments of conversation because they feel it's so gripping, so meaningful. But I'm able to obviously reach so far to people who are beside me. And my serious contribution to them, if I cared for them, if I loved them as fellow human beings, would be naturally that they have this trigger that opens their eyes for them to be able to see that they may have that courage and conviction to stand out even if they were alone. And I know for sure psychologists say that unless you find life really, really challenging, you will find life boring. And the one area where you can find utmost challenge is in the carving of your life against the current. And you can give it that beautiful shape and stand out distinctly. Life automatically becomes so much more meaningful. You may be a doctor, you may be a chartered accountant like I am, or you may be anything. That's a profession. But the meaning that you are able to grant, you grant it to your own self, and the perspectives then that which you have, then the way you really frame your life, the way you engage, the way you spend your time, and the way you can be meaningful to others to that extent of transformation. I've experienced so many of the people with whom I work with, even their children, are so interested and long for the message that I represent. What if I were one among the billions of Indians without any real distinctive value? So I can't imagine why I would ever want to ever go back or not really continue to engage in the same fashion with the same vigor, with the same drive. In fact, I'm hoping that the fullness of life ought to be in a way realized in various facets, whether you are at your workplace, whether you're the head of your family, as a parent or a spouse, in whatever capacity you may be, or as a citizen even, that fullest to be realized is the hope and the desire. And I know for sure the path is clear. Time doesn't wait for anyone, it's moving on. So, what are we then waiting for? We might as well grab this opportunity, and it doesn't require any of your money. It just comes in free. And if you can have the best of existence, why would you not want to go on the journey? So, my encouragement to even all your viewers is that they also dig deep, ask the big questions, and have that craving. From somewhere, you will get your answer and a new direction, a new life. You turn over fully. You will never be the same if you were to yield to this appealing option of existence.
As you said, the path is clear. We just need to make a choice to get on it and pursue it with all of our heart and soul. And so I really thank you for spending time with us today and to share with us the intensity and urgency needed to get on this path as soon as possible. So thank you for spending that time. And thank you all for listening. I hope this episode was insightful and useful for you. And as usual, I will see you again next week with another topic that will help you live a life of purpose and help you live the life that you were meant to live.